So, like, we are in agreement that political violence in any form is bad, right? I mean, we've been saying it for quite a while now. I mean, like, we were saying it following the attempted kidnapping of Nancy Pelosi and the subsequent attack on her husband. We were saying it earlier this year, following the successful assassination of Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. We were screaming it from the rooftops after the vicious assault on our nation's capital, January 6, 2021. We have more firearms than actual people in this country. We have the easiest access to semi-automatic weapons of war in this country. Firearms are the #1 cause of death of children in this country. So why do we as a nation continue to find every limp noodle excuse to do nothing about this? Except, of course, politically weaponize it. Charlie Kirk's corpse wasn't even cold before the nation was ordered all flags be at half-staff. Meanwhile, Mango Mussolini wasted no time to address the nation and publicly blame what he calls the radical left lunatics for this tragedy. When statistically, mass shooters in this country have been regularly white male Republican. For instance, the guy who targeted Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband just earlier this year, Trump supporter. The guy who targeted the home of Governor Josh Shapiro, Trump supporter. The guy who targeted Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Trump supporter. The men who were convicted of trying to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Trump supporters. The guy who targeted the homes of President Barack Obama and President Joe Biden with pipe bombs, Trump supporter. Where was the outrage after all of that? If I recall, Fox News made jokes about it. Everyone on the right with a platform was constantly making memes and jokes and making light of the situation. So where was the outrage then? What about the thousands upon thousands of children who have been killed in mass shootings? What about the children who were killed while they were praying just last week? What about the children who were shot the very same day as Charlie Kirk? This guy wasn't even a political person. He wasn't even elected official. He was an influencer who was known for his political debates. You know, about issues like how he felt that passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. Or how gay people are a disease, or if his very own prepubescent daughter was assaulted and subsequently impregnated, that he would force her to carry it to term. This is a guy who is so pro-life that he says that the repeated slaughter of our children is just the price we pay for our Second Amendment rights. So forgive me if I don't have a lot of sympathy for the guy. The way I see it, the man died defending what he believed in. Of course, not to make light of this tragedy, I mean, the stoner in me just has to wonder at the just poetic timing that this man was debating the statistics of gun violence in this country, related or unrelated to gang violence, and then immediately becomes a victim of the very thing he was defending. And the thing is, given all the cherry tops I spotted in that cottage cheesecake crowd, when everyone was scattering, running for cover, all I could honestly think was that, where's the good guy with the gun? Stop him! This is your moment to shine, buddy! Prove the rest of us wrong about gun reform. And as for the political weaponization of this whole thing, I remind everybody that within hours of the attack on Charlie Kirk's life, Kash Patel took to social media to announce that they have caught the shooter, only to later learn that they did not got the shooter, and then they arrested another guy, which they also learned was not the shooter. Meanwhile, every single voice on the right with a platform just flooded the bandwagon to declare actual war on the left. Meanwhile, the literal president of the United States addressed the nation to publicly blame, without proof, the radical left, as he puts it, for this heinous attack. And then went on to spew rhetoric about how every single one of them needs to be eliminated. Since when is this kind of rhetoric acceptable for the president? And you know, the funny thing about all of this is it turns out the shooter was in fact not a transgender black person of color, immigrant, whatever the fuck, scary boogeyman of the week. It was in fact a 22-year-old multi-generational pasty white ruby red Republican Trump supporting gun toting family from Ruby Red, Utah. In fact, this guy went after Charlie Kirk because he felt Charlie Kirk did not love Trump enough. Could this have anything to do with the fact that Charlie Kirk was starting to doubt the transparency of Agent Orange's regime over the Epstein files? And you know what? I also found it interesting that as soon as it came out just who exactly the shooter was, you know, after he confessed to his father, who was a veteran in law enforcement who then turned him into the authorities, that every single person who wanted bloodshed after what the left had did to poor Charlie Kirk, now all of a sudden we should be praying for the shooter, and Charlie would want us to forgive him. Like, this is quite an about face, wouldn't you say? I mean, if you were to ask the literal president, you know, the guy who would not be where he was in big part because of Charlie Kirk's influence, we asked him how he was doing following his tragic passing, to which he responded, he's doing great. By the way, have you seen this beautiful new ballroom they're installing into the White House? After everything Charlie Kirk did for this guy, he's barely an afterthought now that he's no longer a useful political pawn. And you just know that before the revelation came out about the shooter, that you know every single one of these influencers had visions of Reichstag dancing in their heads. And if you're unfamiliar with das Reichstag, in a nutshell, it was an attack on the German parliament building just a few weeks after Adolf Hitler was sworn into office. The tragedy was then utilized by Hitler and the Nazi Party to justify, hey, look at those guys over there. You see how violent they are? We got to suspend their civil liberties and voting rights, which subsequently led to a heavy leveraging in future elections, which of course upsurged the power that infamously led us to World War II. And here's a conspiracy theory for you. Given our treasonous traitor Taco's admiration for the man who will literally have someone thrown out a window just because he doesn't like him, I would not be surprised if this young man took it upon himself to sacrifice Charlie Kirk in order to victimize the MAGA party, villainize the left, and of course, drag our attention away from a particular set of files which are a major part of probably the largest scandal in American history. By the way, Dawn of Old, that's a pretty unique birthday card with a pretty unique scrawl. But her emails, am I right?